All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining. We're really excited today to have Manu Platt with us to help us in what, as you know, has been a series of conversations and workshops that we've initiated here at Gladstone, in my mind, to really help take us from an institution that has long been intolerant to racism to one that is more proactively anti-racist, and that means a lot of different things and requires a number of different actions than maybe what we have taken in the past. But a foundational aspect is education and understanding. That we started with a session we had last week on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we'll continue with the second part of that next week regarding precise language. Today's talk by Manu is going to really highlight a number of key things for us to think about around anti-racism, and particularly around academia and what we can do in that area. And so being from Georgia Tech, Manu is close friends with Todd and Meg McDevitt, as some of you might know. And so Todd is going to do a more proper introduction for our distinguished speaker. Todd?
Thanks, Deepak. Yeah, this is one of those where you think anxiously look forward to it as a friend and a colleague. Maybe make Manu a little nervous about some of the other stories I'd love to tell, but I will leave out of today's intro for him. I've been fortunate to know Manu now, looking back, almost 15 years. And it's amazing how quickly that time has gone. And I think as you're going to see in here today, just how much Manu has accomplished as a person in so many aspects of his life. So I met him first when he was a graduate student at Georgia Tech, and I was part of, it was probably my first faculty search committee as a young faculty myself, but I'll never forget it. It was a room full of very senior engineering colleagues, three of whom were or are now National Academy of Engineering members, including the Dean of the College of Engineering, the Director of the major research institute on campus, and also our associate chair for research, our department. And there was just unbelievable, overwhelming support and enthusiasm to recruit Manu as a faculty while he was still a graduate student. And they knew that it would be in his best interests and best for the breadth of his development to go and do a postdoc, which he did do at MIT with two, again, very great or close friends and colleagues, Doug Laufenberger and Linda Griffith. And even as Manu was a postdoc there, we still maintained interactions. I don't know if Manu remembers, but actually I reviewed his paper, not as a peer reviewer, but actually as a friend reviewer before he submitted his first postdoc paper. And it was great. It was a great way to see what he'd been working on and doing. He'd start to get a vision for what he was going to do as a faculty. So he was warmly welcomed back in 2009 after he completed his postdoc. And just since that time, in so many ways, both physically, but also more admirably, I would say I look up to Manu, because anyone who knows us standing next to each other, he's about a foot or a head taller than I am. So inevitably, I have to look up to Manu. But I do so more so because of everything that I have been fortunate enough to be witness to over that time. He's an outstanding colleague, researcher, and friend. His passion is, it's just, you're going to see it the moment he starts talking. And it's truly infectious. The parts I think today where I know that Manu can speak to in a way that I just have not seen other people be able to with the passion, sincerity, is in the area of diversity. And you can see it from his CV. He's been director of diversity programs and initiated new programs in almost every research and other endeavor that he's been a part of. He's director of this in the Science and Technology Center that we were both a part of for 10 years. He now is doing that in a newer engineering research center that we're still are both collaborators in. And I think he'll have a chance today to tell you about some of the other really unique, very powerful initiatives that he has started and he almost single-handedly runs. And really, I think one of the things with this and things we just talked about is how do you take everything that one person, Manu, can do, which is more than most people are going to achieve in a lifetime, and take everything he's done in about a decade's time and think about how we can scale this out. So with that, I just want to say I'm just so thankful, Manu, that you're and appreciative of the time you're taking today with this. I know how great it's going to be just because I know you so well, but I just really sincerely thank you for this, and have just been looking forward to this for the last few weeks. So thank you.
I'm sorry. So I laugh a lot. You'll hear that throughout this moment. And And so I'm thankful to be here, and I'm thankful to Todd for the invitation, and of course, thanks to Deepak for making the space. And after that glowing remarks from Todd, I'm like, my talk will do none of that. Oh my goodness. So I'm hoping that Todd still has a job at the end of this. No, he should be great. These are always interesting kind of speeches or talks to give because they are very personal. And they also become personal because they expose a side that we don't show all the time in our professional space. And that's why these things get to be unnerving and they take a lot of active energy. And there's so much adrenaline that I will probably collapse into sleep when this is over. But that'll be after the Q&A is over. So I do encourage you all to be prepared to ask questions. I have these conversations. I'm one who is not afraid to engage with people. And so let's ask questions and answer things. And if there are things that you know about Todd that I don't talk about, that you'd like me to bring up in the Q&A, because as I was finalizing it, there was a different energy that I was kind of taking on. And so hopefully we are here. But just as a preference, I'm going to share my screen now to make sure that's up and running. And we want to go over here. Share computer sound, share, and I'm going to go into slideshow mode, and you all can see the presentation. That's correct? Excellent. Okay. Great, sorry. And so I'm going to show some videos. As you all probably know, well, as Todd mentioned, I'm a biomedical engineer by training. That is my specialty. That is what I do. Cardiovascular disease. I love to study tissue remodeling. That's the way I'm trained, but I've been Black in America a long time. And that's where some of these other conversations will come from. But I also wanted to center the spaces or center the voices of some people who are actively involved in these movements. And I wanted to start off with just framing the time. I actually had a conversation this morning with the CEO of a local biotech company here that we work with for other reasons. And he told me about the conversation he was having with his workers and how there were things that he just didn't understand about the moment. And there are other conversations I've been in with my department, with other spaces. So I just want to give this to you, and I haven't had the chance to actually give it this way, but to share what I'm feeling. Again, I don't propose to speak for all Black people, but I do talk to a lot of Black people, a lot of Black academics, a lot of Black people that are not academics. And so again, while my views may be similar and others may relate, they do not define everyone's experience. But this is my take on the moment and what I've contemplated from others. But it really is about gaslighting in the academy, all right? And how to actually make Black lives matter. So let's get started. I'm gonna start with this video though.
Economics was the reason that Black people were brought to this country. We came to do the agricultural work in the South and the textile work in the North. If I decided that I wanted to play Monopoly with you, and for 400 rounds, I didn't allow you to have any money. I didn't allow you to have anything on the board. I didn't allow for you to have anything. You don't get to play at all. Not only do you not get to play, you have to play on the behalf of the person that you're playing against. You have to play and make money and earn wealth for them, and then you have to turn it over to them. And then we played another 50 rounds, and everything that you gained and you earned was taken from you. That was Tulsa. That was Rosewood. Those are places where we built Black economic wealth, where we were self-sufficient, where we owned our stores, where we owned our property, and they burned them to the ground. So if I played 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I had to play and give you every dime that I made, and then for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it, how can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. Burn down your own neighborhood. It's not ours. We don't own anything. We don't own anything. There's the social contract that we all have, that if you steal or if I steal, then the person who is the authority comes in and they fix the situation. But the person who fixes the situation is killing us. So the social contract is broken. You broke the contract when you killed us in the streets. You broke the contract when for 400 years we played your game and built your wealth. You broke the contract when we built our wealth again on our own by our bootstraps in Tulsa, and you dropped bombs on us. When we built it in Rosewood and you came in and you slaughtered us. You broke the contract.
And this is the actual speaker.
Be enough. And they are lucky that what Black people are looking for is equality and not revenge.
And I almost called this talk Black Lives Matter, Diversity, Inclusion, and Other Gaslights in the Academy. But that could come off a bit different and harsh than the way I actually mean that. But I just want to start there with the definition of gaslighting. We hear it a lot with the federal government and the current administration and things that are happening. And I really didn't know much about the term until this administration, we started to hear it a lot. But gaslighting is but if you look it up, gaslighting is a form of manipulation that occurs in abusive relationships. It is an insidious and sometimes covert type of emotional abuse where the bully or abuser makes the target question their judgments and reality. Ultimately, the victim of gaslighting starts to wonder if they're going crazy. And so that's what I'd like to talk about today, what it is to live in America during these moments, to have lived in America for all this time, to have that historical background that was described in that first video, and to be aware of the past injustices, inequities, and indignities, and then to navigate a world where those are not known to everyone, but how to still try to succeed and build in that space. And I always go back to this picture because number one, I love this image. It's such a striking image. And this image this is from 2016. And this video that's been going around on the web from my talk in 2017 was 3 years ago. And the title was The Danger of Acting Now. And there were some actions that weren't taken at that point that now have built this, have grown to where we are today. But now everyone, I think, is fairly clear. They weren't clear 3 years ago, but I think people are fairly clear now that the reason Colin Kaepernick took a knee is to bring attention to police violence of killing Black people. I think now people are starting to understand that even the NFL has come to understand that was his reason, but he lost his job and still has not played in all of this time. And again, the statistics back then were that unarmed Black people were killed by police at 5 times the rate of unarmed white people. I tell you this, I am a Black man, okay? I live in this Black body. Though my colleagues may see me and oh, they get to know me and oh, we like Manu for Manu and oh, we don't see color, all of these things. I am Black, I'm aware of it, I know it, and I love being Black, okay? And I say Black. Other people, as you know, say African American, I say Black. It just gets to it for me, right? And I think it's important for people to understand, I am not different from other Black people. And that is why what happens in the world that is happening to Black people is happening to me. It is happening to my family. The fears that other people are taking on are fears that I hold. The joy that I see when justice is served are joys that I also take on. And so I'm not different. My mom is Black, my dad's Black, my brothers are Black, my grandmother's Black, my grandfather's Black, my cousins are Black. All the things that you say about Black people, if you say that to me about, Black people, you're talking about me and my people, okay? And so I sit in this job as a professor, and that's wonderful, but just like other people, I've been harassed by the police. I've been in New York City at night and out with some friends, that's when I was driving, and we made a wrong turn, so we turned into a parking lot to make a U-turn. We didn't do a U-turn in the street, we turned into a parking lot to do it all that. 5 police cars descended on us, and the one who came to my door had the gun drawn as these 5 other cars were pulling up on us. All because we made a wrong turn and we fit the description. So when I see these things happen, these are people that I know and I live in this Black body. But beyond that, I'm the second oldest of 6 boys. So I have 5 brothers. So when I see Black men be attacked, it's not just about me, it is about my brothers that are also at risk and my father. In recent times, I've had a conversation with my father asking him, how has it been for him to have 6 boys, 6 Black men out in the world living and worrying. I have young friends or friends my age who are raising sons, young sons, that are terrified about raising Black boys in today's society. And my father had an interesting take. It was not one of magnanimous thought. He was like, there are things you can control and things you can just pray for. And that is the level of helplessness that you might see sometimes. But let's talk about some of these examples of gaslighting. When the police kill an unarmed person, what is their common statement? I thought they were going to kill me. I was afraid for my life, right? I'm a tall Black man. I'm about 6'3", and I'm big, and I'm getting bigger sitting here in the house through COVID. But they always say this. Well, if the police, we understand that the policing is a scary job, but if the police are afraid for their life, what is it for a Black man to encounter the police? Stephon Clark, the police said they were afraid for their life. He was killed at 22. In his grandmother's backyard, the cops thought he had a gun, so they shot him in the back in his grandmother's backyard. They were afraid for their lives. He had a cell phone. That was the gun they thought they saw. Botham Jean, 26 when he was killed by police. It was an off-duty police officer. A woman police officer. He was actually in his home resting, eating ice cream, and she broke in. She mistakenly thought that he was in her apartment, and she shot him. Really, she was afraid for her life. She was actually one that actually has been prosecuted and incarcerated. Sandra Bland, my God, it doesn't happen to just Black men, it happens to Black women as well. Sandra Bland was 28 when she was killed or died. She died in a jail cell. And she was arrested for not using a turn signal when switching lanes. And the reason she switched lanes was to allow a police car to pass her. So she gets over so the police car could pass her. He then pulls her over for not signaling to switch lanes. And then an argument proceeds and she's thrown in jail and she dies there. The police say it was suicide. There's questions. So don't gaslight. So this gaslighting of I was afraid for my life. When you've initiated this contact, you've initiated these scenarios and the other person comes out not alive. But here's another example. They say, I was afraid for my life. Well, it's interesting when they told us that about Sandra Bland and Botham Jean and Stephon, because when the Emmanuel murders took place, where these 9 Black parishioners were praying in their church in South Carolina, and that murderer came in, prayed with them, and then proceeded to kill these 9 people and injured several others. The cops who tell us that they were afraid for their lives were able to catch this murderer, I don't want to say his name, calmly. They knew that he had murdered people, knew that he had multiple guns with multiple rounds of ammunition, but something was different, that they weren't scared for their life with him, and even took him to Burger King after his calm arrest. Gaslighting. Are you scared for your life? Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, that mass shooting that we remember every year, although gun legislation has not changed to adequately remember it. They knew that the person who did these killings also had guns, had killed people, but they later apprehended him without incident. Gaslighting. We were afraid for our lives. Someone that you know has guns, you know who kills. James Baldwin said this years ago, to be Black and conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage. But as a tall Black man, I cannot express rage as I walk around because police will see me, colleagues will see me, other people will see me, and that will be scary to them, and they might fear for their life. Other gaslights. The police are here to protect the community. We'd love to believe that. We would love to believe that. And this is where gaslighting makes you crazy. Like, I'm not crazy for believing that, but they have harassed me. They have done this to me. They have done this to my family members. But this is something I should believe. Well, these people don't get the luxury of being able to believe that. And these are the recent ones. Breonna Taylor, killed while asleep in her home because the police had a no-knock warrant and broke in. And her boyfriend who was with her, surprised that someone break into their home, pulled out his legally registered gun and shot, and then they pumped bullets into Breonna Taylor, and she was an EMT. Every time I see a picture of Breonna Taylor, it breaks my heart because she is a girl that I am friends with. I don't know her, but I know this girl. I have so many thick Black girl friends of mine who get fly, who just live their life, and it just devastates me, honestly. Tony McDade, Black trans man, because Black trans lives do matter. We must make sure we include them. Black trans women are actually the most killed group, not by police, but by society as a whole. And so they deserve protection too. But Tony McDade was killed by police. Elijah McClain, this is another one that breaks my heart. The story is one of the newer ones that's breaking. Slight 140-pound man. He used to play the violin for homeless cats. A sweetheart by all who encountered him. And the police, there's a video you can watch, and then later on he died in jail because of injuries he obtained from that police aggressive act. Sweet soul. Everyone's talking about George Floyd, so I don't need to mention him, or I don't need to expand upon him. He, of course, is worthy to be remembered. And Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery happened well before George Floyd. And Ahmaud Arbery is interesting. This was in Georgia. This was right as COVID-19 was taking off and we were in isolation. And you saw these talks on the news about make sure you try to get exercise, get outside once or twice a day if you can, don't stay inside cooped up. Ahmaud Arbery went out for a jog during the COVID quarantine, and two men chased him in their truck with guns. A third recorded it, so it was almost for sport, and then shot him while he was out for a jog. At the beginning of quarantine, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll take some time and start jogging again so I don't put on this COVID weight. This happened in that first week that I was thinking that, and I have not been out for a jog since. I live in Georgia. And I heard about this when it first happened, but the rest of the, because I live in Georgia, but the rest of the country found out about it 2 months later when a video surfaced. Think about that. 2 months, and only because a video had surfaced. And Black men in America are supposed to go about as though these are their friends. And one of those men who killed Ahmaud was a former police officer. And so what was their crime? People, the cops could say all the reasons they broke into their homes or had to encounter with them, but they were just living. They were doing things that any of us do, leaving the store, sleeping in bed, going for a jog. They were living, and the police officers decided that they would not anymore. So that's why when we think about this protect and serve, protect whom? Breonna Taylor's murderers have still not been arrested. Only one of them has been fired. Elijah McClain was killed more than a year ago by police, and his case is now being reopened to determine if charges will be filed. A year ago. Ahmaud Arbery's murderers, again, they were not arrested until 74 days after the killing. They're just in the community. His family knows who they are, and they're just around. And think of the trauma that puts on the family and how and whether they feel safe living in that community. And Sandra Bland's killers will not be arrested. That has already been decided. So who are they protecting and serving? I love this. Quinta Brunson is the Black comedian. She goes, being Black is having a good day and then seeing another Black person was killed for no reason. Then you have to think about it, talk about that all day, or don't, and numb yourself. It's a constant emotional war. And imagine this is happening. I've got grant deadlines due. I've got to review articles for journals. Got to make sure my graduate students are okay. Got to worry about COVID while all of this is happening. But another gaslight. We need law and order. So as calls are mounting about defund the police and controversy is surrounding about that, then you hear these other statements made from central administration officials. America wants law and order. We need law and order. And most people agree this to be a true statement. But when you look at what's happening, I've already told you who of these officers who were murderers did not get arrested or are not going to jail. But what else does law and order look like? The ex-Stanford swimmer, the rapist, was released after serving half of his term. And his term was only 6 months, by the way. So he's out of prison 3 months early, after only a 6-month term. Law and order. Michael Flynn, Department of Justice has dropped his case against him, and there's all this other court hijinks happening, to someone who pleaded guilty twice. Law and order is a thing that we need in this country, and that we have. Kelly Loeffler, senator from Georgia, and Richard Burr from North Carolina were briefed on coronavirus, then they sold stocks. There was a bit of an investigation, but maybe not. Now it's over. But law and order is what we need. We must police these Black people sleeping in their beds. Roger Stone, the prosecutors also in the Justice Department wanted to lower his sentencing. But we have these young Black people that are being killed where there's trial, judge, and jury at the hands of the police with no sentencing. It's a death sentence. But we want law and order. The Supreme Court appears likely to reject Trump's claim he's immune from criminal investigation. He's even immune from criminal investigation, but tells the rest of America he supports law and order. We need law and order, just as a reminder to people. So the man who filmed Eric Garner's video was arrested and thrown in jail and has been in jail for 4 years. However, the police officer who actually killed Eric Garner did not go to jail It took a long time before he was actually fired. And look, he's actually suing to get his job back. Law and order. Many of these cops that have killed unarmed Black people, if they get fired, which rarely happens, they can easily move to another police force and repeat. This happened with Tamir Rice's killer. But you think about how does this look in the news, and they make it seem nice. The man who filmed the Eric Garner video. Well, let's remind people, the man who filmed the Eric Garner murder is behind bars. The officer who was fired for using a chokehold. The officer who killed Eric Garner is suing to get his job back. Let's not make it nice, because this is dangerous for people that could be at the hands of the abuse of these systems. And again, those are the new people. These are the, quote, I don't even want to say the old guard, Rakia Boyd, Trayvon Martin, Jordan Davis. These are ones that had already been killed at the hands of unarmed police or by people who wanted to be policemen when I did the earlier talk. And one thing that I wanted to do was change the language of, instead of saying unarmed Black people, what if we as citizens of this country looked at them as unarmed Americans? What if you didn't see their face and heard their stories and just heard that this unarmed person was killed by police? And at the number and rate at which it was happening, does that change one's perception? And the part that really gets us on the gaslighting and the law and order is, of those, only one of those killers was convicted by police or was convicted of murder or of killing. And this person actually who killed Jordan Davis was not a police officer, and he was only convicted at the second trial, because at the first trial there was a hung jury. He was convicted for second-degree assault for having shot at Jordan's friends who were in the car with him. Oh, by the way, he shot them because they were playing music too loud at a gas station. But the jury was hung on if he should be convicted of murder. But on the second trial, he was convicted of murder. Jordan Davis's mother is now a congressperson from Georgia, Lucy McBath. And you can see these statistics. Only 13 of the 104 cases in 2015 where an unarmed Black person was killed by police officers resulted in even being charged with the crime. With George Floyd's murder, things are changing. Things are happening quickly. Perhaps it's due to the protests, perhaps it's due to the videos, perhaps it's due to us all sitting inside the house and we just watch these images over and over as we are trapped inside due to COVID. But still, law and order. Oh great, a police officer was convicted in Minneapolis. But who was it? It was a Black police officer for killing a white woman. Was the first time in the history of Minneapolis that a cop went to jail for killing a citizen. Is it justice? Is it hypocrisy? We all, I let each person can decide. But this happened after Philando Castile was killed in Minneapolis. This is the young man who was in the car with his girlfriend and their daughter in the back seat. The police pulled him over for speeding or some other such nonsense. And he warned the officer, he said, whoa, I have a license to carry. He has a concealed carry permit. Tells the officer, and the officer's like, what, let me see your gun. Because he's getting it because he knows as a Black man, if they think I have a gun, this could be a problem. As he's getting it out and told them he has a concealed permit, the cops unload into the car, killing Philando Castile. And his girlfriend was live streaming it on Facebook at the time, and that is how we know. Oh, by the way, those police also did not go to jail or get arrested. So I want to share this from Tamika Malley, one of the young sisters who's an organizer in Powerhouse in today's
This is a coordinated activity happening across this nation. And so we are in a state of emergency. Black people are dying in a state of emergency. We cannot look at this as an isolated incident. The reason why buildings are burning are not just for our brother George Floyd. They're burning down because people here in Minnesota are saying to people in New York, to people in California, to people in Memphis, to people all across this nation, enough is enough. Yeah. And we are not responsible for the mental illness that has been inflicted upon our people by the American government, institutions, and those people who are in positions of power. I don't give a damn if they burn down Target, because Target should be on the streets with us, calling for the justice that our people deserve. Talk about it, Tamika. Where was AutoZone at the time when Philando Castile was shot in a car, which is what they actually represent? Where were they? So if you are not coming to the people's defense, then don't challenge us.
And she offers solutions.
way to stop it. Arrest the cops. Charge the cops. Charge all the cops. Not just some of them, not just here in Minneapolis. Charge them in every city across America where our people are being murdered. Charge them everywhere. That's the bottom line. Charge the cops. Do your job. Do what you say this country is supposed to be about, the land of the free for all. It has not been free for black people, and we are tired. Don't talk to us about looting. Y'all are the looters. America has looted black people. America looted the Native Americans when they first came here. So looting is what you do. We learned it from you. We learned violence from you. We learned violence from you. The violence was what we learned from you. So if you want us to do better, then damn it, you do better.
And when I look at that video, what you see, it cut off right before, but she actually then steps back into the crowd and puts her mask back on. And you see all the organizers and supporters around her with their masks on, because we are doing this in this time of COVID, where there is an infectious disease that is easily spread and easily contagious, that is disproportionately killing black and brown people in this country. And on top of that, the police are still killing unarmed black people. This is the time and this is the danger in which people are living. Deep breath. So that's the backdrop. That's the rest of life as a black person living in this country right now. And then I go to work, okay? And this faculty job, I love it. I love it for so many reasons. It's one of the best kept secrets. I think we scare people away in grad school so they don't know how good this job actually is, right? Especially when we get all the free food and free travel, which I really, really miss. I really do. But then the gaslights continue with, we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I hear this at my job, and I want to believe it. They hired me. They've hired a few others. We have programs, and there's things. But is this a gaslight? And this gaslighting, I probably wouldn't have thought this before, except now at this age of with the protests, and there's all these statements and things being made, and everyone wants to rally around and wants to talk about it, and it's like the new thing, right? And people, and I understand why. But is it a gaslight? And the warning here is, please don't let it be a gaslight. Because just like with police brutality that was allowed to fester and simmer for so long, faculty are getting fed up with things that are going on. So let's talk about a few things. What are some of these gaslighting statements, and why does it look like it might be gaslighting? These are some facts. I could give you sources. I didn't have time to really pull them all out and put them in here. But there are less black men in medical school today than there were in 1979. I was born in 1979. And there are less black men in medical school today. So all of this, we've made great improvements and we've done this and that. Wow, absolute number, less. Between the years 2002 and 2017, of the roughly 50,000 people who earned PhDs each year, the percentage that were black increased only modestly, from 5.1% to 5.4%. This is PhDs in all fields of humanities, social sciences, education, etc. However, in more than a dozen fields in 2017, largely subfields within STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, not a single doctoral degree was awarded to a black person anywhere in the United States. 2017, the year that I gave that first talk. And then wait, here's a bullet point that we should celebrate. African-American tenure-track faculty in engineering have increased from 2% to 3%. Celebrate that. And that is a statistically significant increase. But since then, now it's back to 2%. Black people make up 13% of the United States population. 2% of us are tenure-track faculty in engineering. And so I was fortunate when the Biomedical Engineering Society allowed me to present this award, and awarded me for many of the events that Todd talked about in the introduction that I've taken a part of. And I do it for a number of reasons. I do it because someone did it for me. There were programs run to help me be successful and to introduce me to new opportunities. But it is also great to be recognized for such things. And we in the Academy like to talk about diversity and equity. I think corporate America likes to talk about it too. And there's some great heroes of mine like Shirley Malcolm, who was at the National Science Board for years and at AAAS. And they make this case for diversity, trying to appeal to numbers and stats and why it's good for business and how you get the most creative ideas. And those are all things that are great. But so everywhere you go, you can hear people talk about diversity and equity and inclusion. And what we stopped talking about, because we got so wonderfully academic with saying diversity, equity, inclusion, we stopped talking about racism. If we could really start talking about stopping racism, ending racism actions, then diversity and inclusion will start to become a more natural thing, potentially, but we still need to be intentional. I'll talk about that. Racism, but now we're talking about it again, post the George Floyd murder and these and the events and protests that have taken off, which I'm happy. I actually presented this talk last summer. I think Todd was at this retreat, because I was just hearing all this diversity and inclusion. I was like, when are we gonna start talking about racism? But remember, people used to, oh man, did I mess this up? Oh, people used to not say racist. They would not say it about the president or all these other people. They would say these other terms like race-based, racially accented, racially weighted, racially tinged, racially fraught, racially suggested, racially flavored with hazelnut cream, racially marinated overnight, and my favorite, I can't believe it's not racism. Why are people afraid to say race, or to say racist, or to say racism? And as Iyanla Vincent says, let's call a thing, people. If we're gonna talk about racism, let's call it racism, and then let's talk about it so we can address it. And so that's why we've seen a great movement, again, post George Floyd's murder, in these about how to be anti-racist. And I think Deepak mentioned that in his introduction and welcome. So I wanna share this clip. This is from Jane Elliott. And if you haven't seen this, she's a former third grade teacher who became an anti-racist lecturer and teacher. And she does this brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment where she takes people who have blue eyes, makes them wear a green collar, and then treats them like Black and brown people are treated in America. So I just want to play this short clip for you.
Perception is everything. White people look vicious and ugly and non-caring and cruel and arrogant.
Whoops, sorry.
And powerful and condescending and angry. Are you angry?
No.
Oh, good for you. You angry?
Trying not to.
Trying not to be. Now, does that take a lot of energy?
Yes.
Yes. Are you holding it in?
Yes.
Yes. And are you trying really, really hard not to react to me?
Yes.
Yes. And are you trying really hard not to look at me?
At the moment, yes.
Yes. Why?
Because I don't want to make myself more upset.
You don't want to make yourself more upset by looking at me.
Yes.
Right. Does that take a lot of time, a lot of energy?
Yes.
Yes. Is that hard for you?
Yes.
Could you develop an ulcer over this?
No.
If you had to do it every day, what would happen to your blood pressure?
It would rise.
Yeah. If somebody stood over you and you knew it was going to happen every day, or you expected it to happen every day, or it happened when you didn't expect it to, or it happened to your kids every day, after it happened to your mother every day. Now, getting right along, your hand is still up. You still didn't learn anything, did you? Didn't I just say when your hand is up, you are thinking of what you're going to say instead of what's being said? Didn't I just say that?
Yes, you did.
And did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
And did you decide that you were just going to do it your way?
I was.
Wait a minute, you were on a roll
yes,
there for a minute.
Did.
Thank you very
yes,
much.
Yes, I did.
Now, since you choose to not listen to others, what do you suppose we're going to do where you're concerned?
No, listen to me.
Thank you very much.
May I finish what I was saying,
no,
please?
because you're still thinking of what you're going to say instead of what I'm saying. Now, getting right along.
I heard what you were saying.
You're doing it again.
What you were
you're
saying.
doing it again.
I don't care.
You're doing it again.
It's wrong.
You're doing it again.
Persecuted her for standing out.
You're doing it again.
Persecuted him for standing out. The only change that ever happens is when people stand out, and I am standing.
Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. Are you in any physical danger here? Are you in any physical danger here? Is that girl in any physical danger here? Emmett Till was hanged by his neck after he was beaten almost to death, simply because he made a statement to a white woman. Every time I do the exercise, there is a point at which I know I have made the point. And we could stop there, but you have to nail it down. And so it goes on longer than some people think it should, but you have to nail it down. people at this institution.
You've made your point, you're right.
Yeah, thank you very much. What is my point that I've made?
But you can't make generalizations about any place because there's racism everywhere.
That's right. And while it may be... No. You don't come back in here until you've apologized to every person in this room. Because you just exercised a freedom that none of these people of color have. When these people of color get tired of racism, they can't just walk out, because there's no place in this country where they aren't going to be exposed to racism. They can't even stay in their own homes and not be exposed to racism if they turn on the television. But you, as a white female, when you get tired of being judged and treated unfairly on the basis of your eye color, you can walk out that door. And you know it won't happen out there. You exercised a freedom they don't have. If you're going to be in here, you're going to apologize to every black person in this room. And do it now.
I'm
and
sorry,
the Latinos, every person of color.
Racism, this country.
Bullshit! No, you're not going to say, I'm sorry there's racism. You're going to apologize for what you just did.
I will not apologize because it's not a matter of race always.
Out. Out. Now, is she choosing to leave? Yes. She could apologize and stay.
I won't play the wrong game anymore.
It ain't gonna hurt her. It's not gonna hurt her to apologize.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
What's going on in this room alone? Once she leaves it, that's it. It's over with.
Okay. That ain't gonna hurt her. Is it gonna hurt her?
She, according to her action, it's killing her.
Yes.
Killing her.
According to her actions, it's killing her. I love that for a number of reasons, because she actually makes some really interesting statements there. The point that the white female who was upset could walk out of the room and she would not be treated the same way once she got outside the room. But people of color cannot just leave this room and go somewhere else and not be exposed to racism. And this is where it gets to be where the gaslighting comes. We're in this moment now where people are talking about it. But what happens when people get tired of talking about it? Oh, I'm tired of talking about racism. And then people move on. The people of color will still have to deal with it because we are tired of talking about it, but we cannot stop experiencing it as things are. And so I wanted to bring that up because when people, this is a thing that also happens, when people say, well, is that person racist? I don't want to say they're racist. They might have some racially charged. When people are more offended by being called a racist than allowing racist actions to occur or racist statements to be made with impunity, then we have it seriously wrong. Yes, persecute the racists, call them out, all right? But it gets to this point of when people want to say, well, I don't know if he's a racist, I don't know his heart, or I don't know this, I don't know what they're thinking. So I take you back to one of my other legends that we talked about. This is James Baldwin on the Dick Cavett show. I forget the actual year, but this is him arguing with a Yale professor, or having a discussion, I won't say argue, having a discussion with a Yale professor. And I just want to, this is the conversation that we have when someone says, oh, stop thinking about these things, or why are you always thinking about race and skin color? Why are you always thinking about these things? So I'll just play this for you also.
So I heard only some of it.
Did you hear anything that you disagreed with?
I disagreed with a great deal of it. And of course, there's a good deal I agree with. But I think he's overlooking one very important matter, I think. Each one of us, I think, is terribly alone. He lives his own individual life. He has all kinds of obstacles in the way of religion or color or size or shape or lack of ability. And the problem is to become a man.
But what I was discussing was not that problem, really. I was discussing the difficulties, the obstacles, the very real danger of death thrown up by the society when a black man attempts to become a man.
All this emphasis upon black man and white does emphasize something which is here, but it emphasizes it or perhaps exaggerates it, and therefore makes us put people together in groups which they ought not to be in. I have more in common with a black scholar than I have with a white man who's against scholarship. And you have more in common with a white author than you have with someone who's against all literature. So why must we always concentrate on color or on religion or this? There are other ways of connecting men.
I'll tell you this. when I left this country in 1948. I left this country for one reason only, one reason. I didn't care where I went. I might have gone to Hong Kong, I might have gone to Timbuktu, I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than had already happened to me here. You talk about making it as a writer by yourself. You have to be able then to turn off all the antenna with which you live, because once you turn your back on this society, you may die. You may die. And it's very hard to sit at a typewriter and concentrate on that if you're afraid of the world around you. The years I lived in Paris did one thing for me. They released me from that particular social terror, which was not the paranoia of my own mind, but a real social danger visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody. I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, it's the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
I don't know if NIH has anything against black professors, but I know they fund us at 50% the rate of other professors. I don't really know for sure if the Academy doesn't think black professors are smart, but I know there have only been about 2% of STEM professors that are black, and that hasn't changed much for the last 40 years. I really don't know if the Nobel Committee doesn't think there are any excellent black scientists. I just know that a black person has never won the Nobel Prize for Science. I don't know if people on my review committee think HBCUs are not good schools or good schools are not. I just know that I've heard my colleagues say that students who graduate from there are not fit to get a PhD at our institution on our admissions committee. I don't know if Johnny is a racist, but I just hear Johnny support people that are racists. I don't know if Billy's a racist, but I know Billy has gotten comfortable winning in a racist system. I don't know if Ann is a racist, but I have heard Ann say racist things. I don't know if Tammy is a racist, but she has told me that I'm her only black friend. I don't know if any of these people are racist, but it is too dangerous for me to truly believe that they're not. And I don't know if any of these people are racist, but I would love it if they would start taking on anti-racist activities. And so when we think about racism in all of its forms, Kamara Phyllis Jones does an excellent job. This was in one of the pre-media videos that I sent out in advance. So they have the stat. For time, I won't be able to show much of it. But she actually is an MD, MPH, PhD, so everything you want. But she actually does this fantastic analogy, a framework for racism called the gardener's tale. And in the Gardner tale, she talks about the three main types of racism, the institutionalized racism, and she speaks about it where these red flowers are to be growing and they're grown in this rich pot, and how the red flowers grow compared to the pink flowers. The pink flowers they put in scrappy, rocky soil, but the red flowers that the gardener loved, they put in this rich, fertile soil that's great for everything to grow, right? And so of course the red flowers grow well and grow strong and go beautiful, right? So there's this unearned privilege they had because she liked that they were red, and that everything about them works out. And the pink flowers struggle to have a chance to survive. But even when the pink flowers, if there's a bees that come along and a pink flower lands over here, or a pink seed lands into the red bucket, it might be able to grow, but the other red flowers might choke it out, or the gardener may come and pluck it out because it doesn't belong where all the other red flowers are. These are things about institutionalized racism. Then she gets on to personally mediated racism, which again, that was the last thing I mentioned, sorry, where they pluck out the pink flowers that might start growing in that rich soil of the red. You don't belong here, right? So these can be intentional or unintentional actions, but again, they are set to maintain structural barriers. These are what most people think about when they think about racism. What does an individual person do? But institutionalized racism plays a major part in how systems are run. And then the third one is internalized racism. These reflects the systems of privilege and societal values, where a pink flower, if a bee is coming along to pollinate it, ooh, I want to be pollinated by a red flower. Don't give me that pink trash seed. It's better for my children if we have some of that red flower goodness going on, because over here where the pinks are is awful. And again, I encourage you, implore you to watch the whole video. There's a link I can send out. It's a TEDx talk. But the end, she says, the most important part of this allegory is then, who is the gardener? The gardener is government. These systems and institutions, they have the power to decide, power to act. The gardener is deciding that they like red flowers. And then when they see the red flowers grow strong and beautiful because they planted them in this rich soil, they're like, see, I was right to like the red flowers, because look at how beautiful they are and how beautiful they grow. The pink flowers just aren't good enough to grow this strong, although the gardener has controlled the resources and created this environment. And it's dangerous when that gardener is allied with one group more so than the other and not concerned with equity. And so for the sake of time, I'm going to zip through this a little bit. So I want to talk about individual actions just so people can think about what they do that can make the situation uncomfortable. And again, intent does not mean, intent and impact do not always go together. Just because one's intent was not there does not mean that the impact was not felt. So there's several racial microaggressions that people of color or women or people with disabilities, or you can replace that as you want, experience in the workplace. But I'm going to talk about race and Black people because that's my experience. You're expected to speak for and on behalf of people of color everywhere, or of Black people everywhere. Hey, Manu, can I talk to you about this Black student I've got? Sure. Now, I'll have that conversation because I may have some insight you don't, but I don't know every Black person. I'm definitely not related to them. But you're sometimes expected to be the barometer of racism. When someone's comfortable with me, it'd be like, hey, so I said this to this person. That's not racist, is it? What if I say yes? How awkward does that conversation become? Now, if it's someone who is open and we have that conversation space, let's do it. But this is a big one for me. You're told that that people are intimidated by you and afraid to approach you. This is really challenging for a young professor who needs to make tenure, and you have to go out and meet people. As I tell people, I'm a tall Black man and I have earrings and dreadlocks. And when I used to approach people at conferences, strangers, people would back up, back away, and kind of zip off. And so I had to develop different strategies at which to network with people. And I'll tell this to all the young people in the audience, my big strategy was at meals. No one's going to get up if they're sitting down at a table with a plate of food. So then I could slide into that table and then have a conversation and try to get them interested or to know who I am and to impress them with the science. But others don't have to think about those extra creative ways. And then that can affect their tenure packages, networks for when they want their grants reviewed, on study section, and all of the other things that go with the peer review system that we pride ourselves on the academy. Another big one, your absence at work, meetings, parties stands out with no regard, and this is with no regard to how exhausting it is to be the only Black person in the room. I have told colleagues of mine, especially some Black professors, it's actually been a blessing that we are in quarantine during COVID, because I cannot imagine going to work right now with all of the George Floyd and the protests and the rest and having to interact with colleagues about it in person. It would just wear me down, okay? And then if I'm not there, like we've had several departmental conversations and things, it will be obvious if I was not there, right? But then I go to sleep after each of those conversations. And then I love this last one. You wonder how you can feel invisible and hypervisible at the same time. This is important. But when we think about microaggressions, these small things that happen, I like to tell people, the thing about microaggressions, they can be explained away, and that it's a form of gaslighting. That, no, I didn't say that to you. I didn't mean it like that. Well, that's what microaggressions are. So I just like to say, while my lived experience may be up for discussion, it's never up for debate. Again, the way that I felt because of what you said or what your actions were, those are valid. My feelings are valid. If, again, intent does not always mean impact, or intent does not negate impact. And that is why we have to think about our own privileges. And Black people also do have privileges. And privilege is more than just race, ethnicity, and gender. There are several axes of privilege, okay? Gender and race and ethnicity are the ones we think about most because those are the visual ones and the ones that there's been this history of inequities against. But there's heterosexual privilege, even still. I mean, the Supreme Court just, last week said that now it is federally illegal for you to be fired for being LGBTQIA+, right? But people will still be fired for that. There will be other ways that people say while they're fired. And then people who have the privilege of having a bank account to buy a lawyer and to do the rest to get their job reinstated will then be reinstated because it's illegal. But there's still a heterosexual privilege in this country. Height privilege, I'm 6'3". I have so many short female graduate students. I love them, they're fantastic, but I make jokes about how short they are. And I put the good reagents that I don't want them to use on the top shelves to hide them. Height is a privilege and I accept that, right? Citizenship privilege, particularly in these days and times. To be a US citizen, well, now it's not so good if you want to get into Europe. But other ways, there are benefits as we look at immigration status being challenged, H-1B, J-1 visas. To be a citizen can be a privilege. And you can see all the rest. And of course, physical ability privilege are ones that we take for granted. But people with mental, medical, and physical disabilities should be included in science and in the academy. But there's intersectionality. You're not just one of those things, right? We can be many, many, many of those instances. Can be a transgender, Latina, Jewish teacher, education, right? But privilege, but when we talk about privilege, some people, it can get a little tense. But privilege simply means that under the exact same set of circumstances you're in, life would be harder without your privilege. Some examples. Being poor is hard. Everyone agrees to that. Being poor and disabled is harder. There's no argument against that. Being a woman is hard in our society and culture the way it is currently set up. Being a trans woman is harder. It's just the truth. There's inequities out there, there's judgment, there's danger. Being a white woman is hard. That is a fact. Being a woman of color is harder in our society the way it is set up currently. Being a Black man is hard. Being a Black gay man is harder. So there are several axes of privilege that you may have one over someone else. But here's the important explanation as we break down privilege. It is the other side of oppression. It's definitely easier to notice the oppression you personally experience than the privilege, because being mistreated gives a bigger impression than when we're treated fairly. We just expect to be treated fairly, so it's an insult when we're not, and it resonates longer. But privilege and oppression affect each other, but they do not negate each other. Often people believe they can't experience privilege because they also experience oppression. Again, there can be a homeless white man in the streets, but a homeless disabled man in the streets are experiencing that very differently, okay? Privilege describes what everyone should experience. We don't use the term privilege because we don't think everyone deserves this treatment. It is because we acknowledge that everyone does experience it. But the big kicker, which should shut down a lot of the fights, is number 4. Privilege does not mean that you did not work hard. You can be privileged and still have a difficult life. Privilege does not mean that your life is easy, and no one is saying that, but rather that it is easier than others. As I talked about in the first half of this talk about police and how they come into communities and what fear it invokes in people, it is a privilege to not have to think about that. In the green-eyed, blue-eyed study that with Jane Elliott that we presented, that young woman was so uptight because she had the privilege that she could walk out of the room and no one would look at her as though she was less than, right? Doesn't mean that her life was easy, but it means that it's easier than someone else's. And this is where allyship is important. And I say that means use your privilege for good. And I go back to this, we've all heard about this from World War II. First they came for the socialists and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, I did not speak out because I was a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. This is why we are all in this together as a community. When one person spots an unfair or inequity behavior, we all must speak out against it because it can easily spread when it's allowed. What's the new thing in America? Not new, probably not fully new, but now Asian American doctors and nurses and other Asian Americans walking around have been under attack since coronavirus, with the racist rhetoric and the blame, and people have been physically attacked even. And this group is not the ones that you normally think about if you're not of this group. That is the recipient of racist attacks in America. But that's why you have to keep a tight lid on people's behaviors and perceptions. Okay, so I'm gonna skip through the NIH stuff because we just was time. And again, even though they updated it, we're still less likely to be funded. So what can we do? Let's talk about that. They've now done all these great studies to look at why Black people are less likely to be funded, when they could just make a policy that you have to fund Black people. But fine, science is a meritocracy, we are told. So it actually turns out that the biggest bottleneck for African-American professors is at the stage of the initial scoring, preliminary scores, and being discussed at study section. And you can see how this breaks down. For white professors, 57% will be discussed. Apps from African-American or Black, 44%. 24% of those being discussed are be funded, leaving percent funded overall of 10.7%, okay? We, the professors on this call, we are the ones who do the reviews. We are the ones who do the ratings. Why are we the ones that are rating these Black professors lower, and why we are not the ones bringing them up to be discussed? We could say it's a meritocracy, but here's what I have for every person who wants to just do something immediately. Cite Black professors. Be intentional. This goes with the statement of we have to do anti-racist activities instead of saying, hey, if I do everything the way it's supposed to, things will change. Cite Black professors. We care about our H index as much as everyone else, maybe more, because we were all raised with this idea that you have to be twice as good to go half as far. So please cite me to get my H index up. I can talk to professors at meetings and send them protocols and other things, then see a paper come out that does not cite any of my work. I guess they forgot it was an accident, right? And then what else can we do to be intentional? Score Black professors high in your grant reviews. This sounds taboo. But think, I've been on study section. People find reasons to score their buddies high, to score well-known professors high, even when they've done poorly written proposals. And I've argued in my study section about this. And if they want to also fund someone in their particular research area high, they will give them a high score. We can all come up with reasons why we want to give a high score or low score. Score Black professors high in your grant reviews, period. Then at the discussion, we'll figure it out there, right? Find a reason. And then I'm just going to be ending on some other ways that you can change the diversity at your graduate program level or at the level of faculty hiring, okay? I'm going to speak about this mostly from the form of graduate students, but a lot of these will apply even for faculty hiring, and then I'll be shutting up. So I'm an engineer, as you all know, and so I call it these 5 boundary conditions between you and the diverse class or the diverse faculty you want. And these are all things that I experienced. I've been on the admissions committee at Georgia Tech since I started my faculty position, and now I've been the chair of that committee for the last 4 years, and Todd and I are in fierce competition for students. So I don't know if I should give out all these things here, but okay, doing this for you, Todd. Okay, so first step, the first boundary. What do they say in the committee? Oh, we're not getting sufficient numbers of applications. Again, whether it's be faculty or from students, for graduate students. Not getting enough that are complete from the Black students. There's a reason for that. Black students aren't applying. They think that you're a bad department. They think you're not good for them. They think they wouldn't thrive with you. There's a number of reasons that we talk amongst ourselves and have impersonations or impressions about places. So there's something out there that there's a perception that needs to be changed if you care. Go out and recruit Black faculty, recruit Black grad students. There are minority serving research conferences. These are great to break stereotypes, Abercan, SOCNUS, and others. I've taken white colleagues with me, and when they see how serious these students are at their posters and about the work they've done, dressed up, it changes their whole mind about whatever the media or society or being raised in America has taught them about scientists of color. Go get them, get those numbers. And that lets them know that, oh, that institution actually might care if they wanted more Black and brown students. Secondly, then once they get sufficient number of applications, those applications don't get through the admissions committee. This is a real stab in the back for those of us out there trying to get people to apply, and then you get all these applications and none of them get selected because we look like liars when we've been out there, okay? So this is where you actually have to change your committee. And I've heard statements, well, you know, students from those type of schools never perform well. I mean, they may have a 4.0 from that school, but the material is just different. Clearly, they're talking about HBCUs, all women's schools, small liberal arts colleges. And you don't know how difficult it is at that school. Morehouse was my undergrad alma mater, was an all black, all male school. And those professors used to cuss us out just for being late to class. Never mind trying to turn in an assignment late or turning in something with misspelled words. A 3.5 from this school is not the same as a 3.5 from that school, okay? I don't know who any of the people who wrote these letters of recommendation are, so I'm not sure if I can trust them. Who are you to judge that, right? Yes, it is your job as a reviewer, but to say I don't know this person, so I don't trust their letter? Interesting. I'm going to score, this is actually a very real one too. I'm going to score all the minority students the lowest possible, since you all are going to give them extra points just because they're minorities. This one almost turned into a fist fight, okay? It did not. But then you need to train your committee to review these applications fairly. And I know there's implicit bias training that universities are doing for most faculty search committees, as well as admissions committees, but you need to be actively putting it into practice when you're in the room and you hear these statements. Third boundary layer, getting sufficient numbers through the admissions committee, so you got that one done, but then they don't accept your offer of admission or to come and join your faculty. So again, this goes back to what is your department displaying and what does the world think? For example, there was a time when my department had 3 black faculty, more than any other BME department in the country, and we were ranked number 2. So for all intents and purposes, everybody should want to come. We had trouble getting black students to come. Some of them came up to me and were like, how come you don't have more black graduate students? Don't black people love Atlanta? It's a little known fact, black people do love Atlanta. So the fact that we didn't have more black grad students in the program, to them was a canary in the coal mine that something's going on with the faculty that is not safe or not supportive of black graduate students. And black people who've made it that far, we don't have time to take the risk that will be the one that'll overcome and not be subject to those inappropriate actions. Another student said this to me at one of our grad mixers. It doesn't seem like anyone really wants to talk to me at this mixer. What does that feel like? I'm excluded? If this is a place of exclusion, then if I come here, I have to deal with that for the next 5 years? Not for me. I've heard faculty say, whoa, there's so many here this year. I'm glad we've lowered the bar. Students of color hear this and they think, yep, nope, they got problems at that institution. I'm not going. So this became important for us to really train our faculty about the things they say, their behaviors, and how they interact with the graduate students when they would visit it. But this is same for faculty hires. When you put up that schedule or itinerary for them to meet with, don't let them meet with racist faculty. Every department knows who those people are. You might not call them racist, but you know this person has issues or whatever. In a one-on-one meeting, you set up your faculty of color, black, Latino, whatever, the risk is high that they will say something offensive, and then that's a turnoff instantly, because why would you take that risk? Okay, so let me speed up a little bit. 4, getting them to accept our offer of admission, so we can get over that hump. Now we have to get them placed into research labs. Oh my goodness, I'm a black professor. I cannot take all the black students, and many of the black students don't want to come work for me anyway because they don't want to work with the black professor, because maybe I'm a little less than. Internalized racism is a real thing. But again, this is where, again, you have to get your faculty on board of looking at these students as equal and worthy and as good and or better than the other students. And then 5, which is where we are now, is getting them into research labs. But not getting research labs, but getting them past qualifying exams, okay? This is a tricky one. No, she didn't answer anything wrong, but we failed her because we wanted to bring her back and just be sure she knows some things. Really? What do you need to be sure about? You had 90 minutes, figure it out. It just took him a while to get to the answer. So we didn't get to ask all the questions that we wanted. Sounds like bad examiners, not that the student underperformed. I'm worried this student won't be successful and will cause trouble for his mentor. We should save his mentor from this being a problem. Really? So we're gonna fail the student to save the colleague who was mentoring the student. And this one that really I had to talk to my department about. Maybe these students should better prepare to be in these uncomfortable situations. Here's a little note. Any black person that's in higher education or corporate America, they have been in uncomfortable situations around mostly white people many times. This is not new to them. Others do have a certain level of privilege where they do not have to go into spaces where they are the one or the only. But these students are aware. So instead of putting blame on the student, maybe we should look at the examiners. Because I've heard in other terms, alternatively, I know she didn't say the answer, but you could tell she knows it. So here we go. And then another one is that English isn't his first language, That's why he didn't understand all the questions. So we should be fair and assume that he knew the answers. So here's a trick. We all see color. Celebrate that. Okay? Oh, I didn't tell you my statistics. Sorry. In the last 3 years that I've been doing this, we've actually been able to get our graduate incoming class to be greater than 20% Black. And we've now been getting our Latino numbers up to 10 to 15% Latino. And last year we did 23% by changing the behaviors on our committee and what we do in person when students come. And what do we do when they come? We celebrate them. We see their color. During our recruiting weekends, we specifically have a session just for the underrepresented students. And this was actually led by a student initiative that the department then supported. So support matters. And we are not ashamed of doing it by getting all these Black and brown students together in one room. Even at our big events, we have special mixers where we then bring all of the Black people to one table in the center of the room with everybody else doing their own thing. And we've had some of our students be like, is this fine that all of us are here together? Yes. Yes. And we do that because you should see there are other Black students here. And if you all come, you all will come as a cohort and you all can be successful. And we do not claim to be a colorblind department because when they're colorblind, then you can't make change that you want to see. All right. So just to begin to close up, oh, I'm gonna have to speed through this. So with Bob Nair, one of my great heroes who we lost earlier this year, always touching, look at this picture. Other ways to make change is to reach the students earlier. We've gotten African-American students from Atlanta Public Schools, put them in the Georgia Tech research labs, and they've been doing amazing things since. And I think it's always important, as someone has done for me, important for me to also reach back, pull someone else up. But here's the trick, celebrate them being themselves. If we have to feel like we need to change to be in this field, then this field is less exciting for us to be in. Celebrate them, and they will bring creative, novel, new, fancy, wonderful ideas to you. And our success has been astounding. Most of these kids are first-generation college students, and now they're in some amazing schools. But there's been challenges. We had to work with the mentors and the labs. But again, I need to bring my whole self to work as well. Celebrate that I'm Black. I love being Black, and people know it, and students that work with me will know it as well. But I'll celebrate all the differences that they are at the same time. And I'm gonna actually zip through this because being Black, you all have heard of these things. The Black Yale student was napping, the police got called. Woman said she saw burglars, they were Airbnb guests. 5 Black women were told to golf faster, then they got the cops called on them. Starbucks, the story from 3 years ago, the 2 Black men were waiting in Starbucks for a meeting and they called the police because they didn't know why they're waiting in Starbucks, when people just sit in Starbucks and wait, right? And so what more clip for you all? Well, I'm gonna skip this, so this is good. This is Annalise Keaton, I'm gonna skip that one now for the sake of time. But I wanna hit this point. Racism is terrible. Blackness is not. This is a recent piece by Emory. When we talk about all these hardships that we undergo as Black people, being Black is not terrible, we love it. Racism is what's terrible. And so I just wanna share these tips. If you see someone in an area that, consider they're there for the same reason that you're there. You see them at a Starbucks? Well, you haven't for a while. Assume they're at the Starbucks for coffee and to do work, okay? And then with all of those things we deal with in our daily life, then coronavirus hit us. I've been dealing with police brutality and all that stuff my whole life. Then coronavirus brought a whole new set of circumstances. And then coronavirus started disproportionately affecting Black and brown people. And it is interesting, there's a great Adam Serwer piece at Atlantic about how it changed in America once they realized coronavirus was most likely impacting Black and brown people. Then it was like, hey, let's open up, let's get this economy going again. And there's a number of reasons why it does. And Kamara Jones says a nice piece, why racism, not race, is at risk factor for dying of COVID-19. For the sake of time, I don't have time to go into it. But imagine living in America as Black, and then this happens. And then the police brutality starts again where they're killing unarmed Black people. And remember, George Floyd was killed during COVID, but after that, Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta was killed. And he was killed by police right up the street from me at the Wendy's right by my house. That I have been asleep in that drive-through at night. But just to close, I want to close with Kamara Jones. She gives this great story about how do we fix it, and we want to end with solutions.
And it with one last image. And this image is not from my own real experience, but actually this is an image taken from the book by Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting in the Cafeteria and Other Conversations About Race. And in that image, she presents racism as a conveyor belt on which people are just living their ordinary lives, not really understanding that they're moving to and through racism, but just living their ordinary lives and contributing to racism by their benign inaction. So I'm going to build on this story get back on the conveyor belt over here, to help us know how can we act. So here we are on this crowded conveyor belt, and we're just living our lives, most of us not even paying attention or even wondering where we're going. But say one of us looks up and we see racism. Well, one reaction is to close your eyes. That's denial, right? Or another reaction is to turn around. You're still going in the same direction. Maybe you're colorblind. But if we do not, and you know what that shows you? That shows you that racism is most often passive. Most often shows up as inaction in the face of need. But if we're on this conveyor belt and we don't want to go there, then what we have to do is start walking backwards, right? And we need to walk at least as fast as it's going, not to go that way, but now we have to start walking faster if we don't want to, we really want to get away from that. And what happens when you start walking backwards on a crowded conveyor belt? You bump into people and they say, hey buddy, watch out. Where are you going? And this is your opportunity to do the first of 3 steps in terms of being actively anti-racist, and that is to name racism. You say, look, do you see where we're going? Do you want to go there? And most people will say, just stop bothering me. But maybe 1 or 2 will turn around with you. So now you're 2 or 3 walking backwards on this conveyor belt. And now where are you headed? You're not just going away from racism, but now you're actually going to understand the conveyor belt motor. And now you're going to do the second of the 3 stages of anti-racism, which is to ask, how is racism operating here? And so maybe one of you thinks it's a lever, and you pick the lever up, and the belt jolts because the lever is part of it. But it's a very smart conveyor belt, so whoop, it reconfigures itself and keeps going. So now you have to do the third thing to be actively anti-racist, which is to organize and strategize to act with others who are on the other side, trying this dial or trying this button. And I believe that we together can dismantle the system and put in its place a system in which all of us can know our full potential and have the opportunity to develop to our full potential. So,
and I love that as an ending. And I like to always end with every person's Bill of Rights, because we are all human at the end of the day. Every person has the right to be treated with respect. Every person has the right to have and express your own feelings and opinions. This is really important, number 3, the right to be listened to and taken seriously. And I say this to people nowadays, believe Black people. When they tell you what they're experiencing, or they tell you what's happening at that workplace, believe them. There's no reason to lie. Number 4 is important, the right to set your own priorities. 5, the right to say no without feeling guilty. The right to get what you pay for, that's fairly obvious. 7, this is really important, particularly for people of color. The right to make mistakes. Many people walking with this burden of I represent every person. If I mess up, no one else will ever have this opportunity. It's a lot of pressure, but we all make mistakes. We just must learn from those mistakes. And then 8, the right to choose not to assert yourself. So if you want to take the lump, but hopefully you're coming back to recoup for another day. So thank you for listening. I hope there's some time for questions, and I can stay for questions as long as you all have them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Manu. Like I said, I've known you a long time, and you just challenged us all in really powerful ways. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Todd. I appreciate that, man.
So I'll pull it together so I can help with the Q&A.
I've been there. It's touchy.
I'll leave with an easier one. I was going to ask you that because I knew from personally, just from Twitter and stuff, and find that, you know, the Wendy's experience, the fact that when that came up, and I was wondering if you're going to mention it, but go on to some of the academic ones. I mean,
take your time. I'll read one from the chat. Take your time. I love this. I love this. I'm going to read one from the chat. There's an anonymous attendee. Can you share one of your most extreme situations where you were subject to gaslighting in academia, and how did you handle it? Sorry, I laugh a lot, as I mentioned. An extreme situation. I've listed a few during the talk, but if I were to, okay, I'll give you one as an example. I was told to my face that there were no microaggressions in my department, that those just do not happen in my department. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, they happen so they don't happen at Georgia Tech? Well, they might happen at Georgia Tech, but in this department, microaggressions do not happen. How is someone going to tell me that, right? I've been living and hearing and listening and talking and communicating for a long time. And that was the biggest gaslighting, and looked me dead in my face and meant it. And so then I had to bust them out on the microaggressions that they actually exhibited towards me that could not be argued with. And it didn't make for the nicest end point to the conversation, but if you ask, then we have to tell you, right? And so the reason I always handle these things, I always tell young people, if you're open to engagement, be sure you have your feelings under control. It doesn't help to cuss, yell, and scream and cuss out people, right? That's not going to fix it. So if that's your go-to, then it's not time for that conversation. But I have used the words that you're given, and there's some other ways you can practice to make sure you use like I terms, like I feel this has happened, I feel this. I'm not blaming you. This is my feelings and my interpretation. And again, but know your limit, because when people can continue to talk crazy, my limit is when I'm going to start cursing. For certain people, they're going to start crying. But when I get to the point where I'm not going to be able to speak without cursing, then I have to like leave the room. Okay, thank you very much. See you, thank you, bye. Boop, and I'm out, and then I'm cussing in the street or in the hallway because it's not going to be productive there. So, okay.
Manu,
Todd,
Manu,
yeah.
I'm just going to chime in. A lot of people don't see probably Todd's softer side very often, but I know the reason you guys are friends is because you're both passionate about many things, but you obviously struck a chord.
I'm touched. I'm very touched, Todd.
Because your talk was so amazing.
Thank you.
Todd, you want to take over Q&A? You want me to?
Yeah, I was gonna go to the second one, Manu. It's a longer one.
My Black friends, they say when they enter their work building, they feel like an alternate universe because it's business as usual. When something like this happens, it shakes people to the core that they can't ugly cry because things are business as usual, and they feel they'll be misguided on their characters and may affect their chances to advance their career. Curious to know, what does Dr. Platt see as best ways to handle this as an organization in academia? This has surprised me also. I'll be honest. In my own institution, the students are angry, right? And the students are the ones that have wanted every institute head, department head, person who runs a center to release a statement about George Floyd's murder. And I'll say this, I and a lot of my Black faculty colleagues, I was actually very surprised that the students wanted these statements. Because when we read a lot of these statements, it was just kind of like, I don't know, that's not that they care. Like the gaslighter, it's like, oh, we care, we support anti-racist. And you're like, y'all were talking trash about the grad students or about me or whomever else last week. Like, but you make a statement, right? But what I found out, but I'm a different generation than these younger people, and I have to own that now. And for the younger people, they do want to hear that you make a statement and care. And it was more offensive for someone not to say anything. And it is because I think this business as usual, it's tough, it's hard out here. I don't know the exact answer, but what I have surmised is I was talking to some of my friends. So this young generation that's in graduate school now, they think Barack Obama was elected president 12 years ago. Right? So if you're 24 now, say you were 12 when Barack Obama was elected president, and during that time, Barack and Michelle are in the White House, you see their children, you have this belief and hope in America, and there's this thing. And I think they really were raised in that space. And then it took a hard turn. But those of us that are older, one thing that we realized is when Obama was elected, number one, a lot of us didn't believe it would ever happen. I mean, even my family, they were like, even if he gets the most votes, they won't let him be president. Right? These are family conversations. But they did, and he did great things. But even still, there was lots of increasing attacks on Black people during his presidency that we all were aware of, and how it became this, hey, because you got a Black president, everything is equal, right? And the older ones of us were like, that's not what that means, but okay. But I think the young people believed it. And so then when the shift happened, and all that has come with that shift, I woke up after the election, and I was upset like everyone else, and mind blown, and then it became again, oh, right, this is America. That's right, this happens, oh. And we had to put back up our guards and get back to work doing things. And so I think that's where the young people, they are getting their skin thickened by this time. And I think it is appropriate to ask those leaders in charge to show empathy and show that they recognize this moment does impact people's ability to even work, right? And people's fears. So I applaud the young generation actually for bringing that up. And I think some of us older guard had to step back and be a bit more sensitive to the needs of them.
So I'm gonna ask one, there's one that came up kind of twice, and this gets to one of the points you brought up specifically about review processes. One common, your opinions, thoughts on blinding both on the front end of these, and because there's a lot of reluctance to do that, as you probably know, sitting on a study section. People feel that information being removed as to identities, that they want that information. I've seen this and heard this. I've heard it for graduate admissions as well, and thinking about that. But particularly maybe speaking to the study section ones is one example where you spoke to that. What are your thoughts about that, I guess, from both blinding, names?
I think the experiment should be run, see how it works. But I think you've seen these grants, the way that we write these grants and what we cite and reference, you can still start to get a feel for who it might be if you wanted to guess. I was a collaborator on a paper that was in an evaluation journal, and they actually do double-blind review for the paper submission, but that meant anytime that they cited their own work, it was blank. The title, of course, were blank. The people were blank. So there was a blank reference. But again, if you're like, oh, this work is missing from these references. Oh, it must be this person's paper, right? So, but I think it's worth the experiment. I think it's worth the try. But I think also there should be intention. And if NIH wants to change it, then say, we got 15% of the applications were from Black people. We will make 15% of all funded go to Black investigators, if it needs to do that, right? So Nancy Hopkins from MIT, she gave this great talk years ago talking about women faculty integrating MIT, and she said the only reason it changed is because the laws mandated change and mandated the numbers to be changed. Because as soon as the laws lifted, things stopped moving. But it was about the numbers that got women faculty into MIT, and make the numbers happen. I mean, I'm okay with that also, but I think we can run the experiment. We're scientists.
So I just realized looking at the ones, I'm looking at multiple windows to keep up with these. We also told folks they can ask questions live, and Claire has her hand up and has been waiting patiently. So I was gonna go to Claire to let her, I know we're coming up on 11:30, but I'm okay going a couple minutes over. I know other people might have to
I can go.
Because of things, but we knew that this would probably be robust discussion. So if people do need to drop off, that's fine, but we'll let it go a couple extra minutes just to allow Manu some more time for that. So Claire, if Lisa, if you can unmute Claire, I guess, and let her go ahead and ask.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great talk, Manu. And this question really follows up on exactly what you were just saying. So we know that when we have more equity at the table, that then we can take the focus off of diversity and just put it on people's work and ideas. But how do you get past the token hires and the token grad students to bringing more grad students? I feel like even at UCSF, there will be the one, hire, and then the next 3 hires will go back to the status quo. How do you've done some of that work in your own program you touched on, but how do you do that in the hiring process and retention process?
This is the wrong wording, but this is what we would say for years. You have to keep their foot on their necks. You cannot let them let up. When you get the one in, you have to get another one the next year and another the next year. The best model is to bring in a cohort of hires, because then they come in as a support group. So when we first had a major breakthrough in our Black grad student recruitment, we brought in 8 Black students in 1 year. We had 10 that applied or that we accepted. 8 of them came. And the big thing was, if all of you all are here together, you'll all be a cohort together. And so then the next year we had those 8 come to the recruiting sessions to see all the other new students we had. And the students took it on as like, oh, if we come, it won't be just us, we can join them. Now, how do you then make that case too? So what we had to do before then though, was bring in other Black students from other departments to invite to our recruiting events so that they could see that their students in other departments, get to know them and to understand what life might be like at Georgia Tech if they were to come. Same thing for faculty. Faculty are a little different because there's family and other ties that they might have. But if you bring in a cohort, then people know they are coming and they will not be the only one. The other thing I'd like to say is when you talk about the term token student or token and the rest, I think what I found is it's important not to hire tokens. And I'm not putting any stank on the way you said, I'm just using it in the way that I've heard it. Because what I've seen is that I tell young people, they will leave that spot open if they don't find even a Black or brown or woman faculty of worth, right? They would just leave it open, say, we didn't find any, no more, we don't have the special hires. So I always tell Black people who feel as though they're a token hire or grad students who feel as though they're a token, no, they would rather leave it blank than you to have the position. So I have to remind them, don't feel that way, but again, be active about recruiting more. And I think that's when each step, keep your foot on their necks, because It can go a number of different ways in each faculty search committee, right? Or then when they come on campus and there's a different discussion. But someone has to be in that room and say, wait, aren't we trying to hire Black faculty this year? Aren't we trying to hire women faculty this year? And go from there. So it's a tough conversation in front of the whole group. But if the group is on board, it should be an easier conversation, just a reminder of what we were looking for.
Manu, let me I'm jumping around a little bit, but there's one in here because I've heard you speak to it before. There's one, and I just want, and you touched on your talk. How do you be unapologetically Black at work when you're afraid that others may be afraid of your Blackness?
Oh, yeah, every time. So here's the thing. I'm not fooling anybody. I'm Black, right? I can wear a tuxedo to work. I can wear a bow tie. I can cut my dreadlocks off. I'm Black. That's it. So anybody who's like, well, I didn't want to play my rap music in my car when I was driving into the parking garage because people were going to know I was Black. You're Black. They see it. All this talk about people are colorblind, they're not unless they're actually colorblind. Even still, colorblind people can tell the difference in skin tone between brown and white skin, right? So once you get comfortable in that, I cannot change the fact that I'm Black. I cannot change that they see Black. I'm Black. And so if these are all the parts of me that who I am, then I walk around standing in it. But I also do this in another way. So how do I rationalize it to others is a separate piece of that question. You know, like I've had students say, oh, I didn't want to go and join like the Black lab, right? These are like Black students who said this, right? But there's the Chinese lab, there's the Indian lab, there's the Korean lab, and for sure there's a few white labs, right? So we look at Black as being this difference, but white is a color as well. And I mean, my PhD started in a Korean lab. And so I can recruit Black people to my lab because they want to work with me and they're Black. Who cares, right? So I just like to tell people, you're not fooling anybody. You're just not. You're not fooling anyone.
One on here, again, this was brought by Benoit because UC Regents recently voted to reinstate affirmative action. I know this has been something when we talked about like even wording in admissions committees, things you can and cannot say with regards to that, even though, I'll put it this way, it's in everybody's mind when they're looking at what are you, but there are certain word phrases that you're not supposed to say or say out loud because that could have been, you know, illegal at the time.
Right.
What are your thoughts on this? And again, how much is this balanced by touching on what you were saying? You know, real or perceived. The term here was used again, tokenism, but I think, you know, just to.
I think it's a great anti-racist policy. It's an anti-racist policy. If through the natural selection processes, we can't get any, we just don't get enough, then be intentional. And if that is the way to be intentional, and there's regulations around it and the school supports it, then it's intentional. And I think what will change for people is they will be surprised at the quality they get, the work that they get, because there's all these other, that's what racism has made them think that if they go to affirmative action policy, they won't get good students or the students won't be successful. I'll give you an example from our center, I won't say it, but if you remember, we had a piece where we had set aside funds, we had using my back channels for EVIX Part 2, had where we set aside funds for a minority postdoctoral fellow, right? Because NSF kept beating us up. They were like, you're supposed to be trying to diversify the faculty, but you don't have any, you know, underrepresented postdocs. And what did the faculty say? Oh, we've been trying, we can't find one that's good enough. Oh, we can't. Or the other comment was, well, I don't want to use my research funds to support a like a Black faculty member. And it's like, but they would come and do research. It's what they actually would do. They wouldn't come and like be secretaries, right? No offense to secretaries. My stepmother was a secretary for years. But what we did is we set aside extra funds and said, if you can recruit an underrepresented postdoc, then you get this extra funds to come into your lab with it. It stayed blank for 3 out of the 5 years, right? And the other 2 years is because I then took one. I took a Black postdoc. Not for others weren't trying. Like, as you know, there were some fall throughs for one of our great colleagues and friends at the last minute. But again, people would leave those spots blank, then put in someone that's not going to work out. But you also have to remind people, and I tell people all the time, if this Black student has come out of whatever school that they went to in whatever city they lived in. Now, not all black from the inner city or whatever, but if theirs went to some poor school, but their teacher saw something in them that then helped them get the scholarship to go to undergrad. During undergrad, they were getting in grades in engineering. Somebody saw something that said, work in my research lab. Then they're working in a research lab and still had the wherewithal to apply to grad school and be successful. That student has been street tested and road tested. And when that person gets into your lab, they can contribute. And I think people might be surprised by the quality they get when they force admissions in some of these ways, hopefully.
So I'm gonna ask one more, because I know we gotta wrap up here, and I want to give Deepak also a chance to just close things. But this is one that, because again, it's come up a few times. I've seen it because of acute committee things, and Bruce Conkle was asked this. How do you balance the fact that minority students feel overloaded with questions about Black Lives Matter and this, with the desire to talk to them about the issue? It feels like at times a slippery, like, you know, broach the topic or not, or hearing at the same time that particularly students are feeling overwhelmed and overburdened and being called upon for things that, you know, they just want to, seems that they want help, they want the solutions of that, but they don't want to be called on to do all of it or to shoulder the workload, which is where it is often fallen.
Right. No, that's an important question. I think that's a personal decision that each person has to make. I've seen other leaders in the field who say things as far as, you know, and you've seen this, I'm sure, about don't ask Black people to teach you about how to be anti-racist, or don't put the burden on the marginalized community to change everyone else. And I feel that way at times, but if there's an opportunity to educate. Now, I'm not going to argue with racists about why people the cops shouldn't kill Black people, okay? I actually gave a diversity talk at University of Arkansas, and I used to live in Arkansas, but this was that. And a white male student at the end, he wanted to wait till I got all the rest of the question, wanted to ask me, he disagreed with me saying that the white cops shouldn't be able to kill the unarmed Black people. Because he said, if the cops are afraid, then they should protect themselves. Because I said, when people are running away, yeah, well, there's a video where someone was running away and then they turned around and then they were able to come back and get the cop and they were, so he wanted to make this case. There's no reason, we don't need to argue then. Like, okay, thank you. We don't have to argue. If you are tied to it, save your time. But if there are people, and I do think there are people who really just want a different impression, or they just, again, do not understand the Black experience in this country, and they can read, true, every person can read on their own, but if there's a connection that someone feels with me that we can have a conversation that might add some enlightenment, then great. Because I will do it with, again, I was in a Korean lab for my PhD, I would do it with the Koreans, find out about Korean culture. I do it with people with disabilities because we've really been on this chair for the last 5-6 years about increasing numbers of people with disabilities. But what do you all need? What's offensive to you? How can we ask it? And I don't know just from like reading something and making it up on my own. So if I talk to someone with a respectful way, then we can have a conversation. When it turns disrespectful, then the conversation's over. But I think every person has to know what is their amount that they can deal. But I get it when it surprises me at times when I realize that I've been having like a race talk or something like that, either as a seminar, workshop, conference, about an hour later, I am dead tired, like dead tired. It is exhausting when the adrenaline leaves. I get it. And it's not easy to do every day, but find one's fortitude. I think together we can make a difference if that's something that you are able to engage with others on. But I don't force it if it ain't right.
Awesome. Thank you, Manu. Again, this has just been, the accolades and the thanks are just pouring down the channels and stuff like that. I know we'll have more of that afterwards, but let me turn it back to Deepak to kind of help close us out with this. And thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Manu, for this period. Manu, for you spending your time with us. I know you must be extremely busy right now, and a lot of demands on your time. So the fact that you did spend this much time with us means a lot to us. And I think the impact of your last video, I think, is maybe what's most relevant also to us, in addition to all the other things, because I think we're at that point where a lot of us been going along our way. We're not racist. We're not doing anything actively, to be harmful. But we may not be taking action where we could be. And I think that's really the fundamental shift that we need to do. And I think we're committed to doing that for the long haul. So we hope we can continue to have these conversations. We will with others and also with you. And I'd love to have you come back and hear about your great science, which I've looked at some of your papers, and it's very fitting with what our interests are here. So if it's going to be too long, we're in this situation, maybe even a virtual seminar would be fun.
Sure.
So we hope to be able to do that. But thank you for everything you're doing on behalf of for our whole world. We all need this. So
leadership at the top matters. So thank you for joining and being a part. And again, thanks to everyone that's invited me, helped me get the tech working, and all the questions. And Todd and Megan and everyone else know how to get in touch with me otherwise. So
okay, yeah, and we recorded this. We'll share it, and with the rest of those who couldn't make it today. But thank you so much. Thanks.
All right, thanks everyone. Take care. Be safe. COVID is real.